From Ancient Canaan to Modern Palestine, the Untold Story of a People. Chapter 1: Ancient Foundations. In the heart of the Middle East lies a land that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of 3 major religions, and countless stories of human struggle and triumph. This is Palestine, a name that carries with it thousands of years of history, culture, and profound significance for millions of people worldwide. Long before modern borders were drawn, this region was known by many names: Canaan to the ancient peoples, Judea and Samaria to others, and Palestine to the Arabs. Archaeological evidence reveals continuous human habitation for over 5,000 years, with Canaanites, Philistines, Israelites, and numerous other peoples calling this land home. The strategic location between Africa, Asia, and Europe made this region a crossroads of civilizations. Ancient trade routes connected distant empires, while conquerors from Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome each left their mark on the landscape and its people. Key historical markers: Bronze Age settlements dating back to 3300 BCE. Rise of ancient city-states like Jerusalem, Gaza, and Hebron. Biblical narratives placing significant events in this region. Hellenistic and Roman periods bringing new cultural influences. The land's inhabitants developed rich agricultural traditions, sophisticated urban centers, and diverse religious practices that would influence the world for centuries to come. Chapter 2: The Islamic Era and Ottoman Rule. The 7th century brought profound change as Arab armies brought Islam to the region. Palestine became part of the expanding Islamic Empire, and Arabic gradually became the dominant language. The local population, whether Christian, Jewish, or pagan, began a gradual process of cultural and religious transformation. Under various Islamic dynasties, the Umayyads, Abbasids, Fatimids, and later the Ayyubids, Palestine experienced periods of prosperity and cultural flowering. The Dome of the Rock, built in 691 CE, still stands as a testament to the Islamic architectural achievement and the region's religious significance. The Crusades, 1095 to 1291, brought European Christian armies seeking to control the Holy Land, resulting in centuries of warfare and cultural exchange. However, it was the Ottoman Empire that would rule Palestine for the longest continuous period in its recent history, over 400 years from 1516 to 1917. Ottoman period characteristics: administrative division into districts, sanjaks. Development of trade networks connecting Europe and Asia. Gradual integration of local Arab families into Ottoman governance. Maintenance of the millet system, allowing religious autonomy. Population consisting mainly of Arabic-speaking Muslims and Christians. By the 19th century, Palestinian society was predominantly rural, with most inhabitants living in villages and engaging in agriculture, while cities like Jerusalem, Nablus, and Gaza served as administrative and commercial centers. Chapter 3: The Dawn of Modern Nationalism. The 19th century witnessed the emergence of 2 powerful movements that would forever change the destiny of Palestine: Arab nationalism and Jewish nationalism, also known as Zionism. Arab nationalism grew as a response to Ottoman centralization policies and European colonial pressures. Palestinian Arabs, like their counterparts across the region, began developing a distinct sense of national identity while remaining part of the broader Arab awakening. Simultaneously, in Europe, Jewish communities facing persecution and inspired by romantic nationalism began advocating for a return to their ancestral homeland. Theodor Herzl's Der Judenstaat, the Jewish State, in 1896 crystallized these aspirations into a political movement. The first Aliyah, 1882 to 1903. Approximately 25,000 to 35,000 Jewish immigrants arrived. Establishment of agricultural settlements. Purchase of land through organizations like the Jewish National Fund. Initial tensions with local Arab population over land and labor. Growing Palestinian awareness. Formation of local committees opposing land sales. Newspaper articles expressing concern about demographic changes. Petitions to Ottoman authorities requesting restrictions on immigration. Development of Palestinian Arab political consciousness. The stage was being set for a conflict that would define the 20th century and beyond. 2 peoples, each with legitimate historical connections to the land, were beginning to envision competing national futures. Chapter 4: the British Mandate and rising tensions. World War I shattered the Ottoman Empire and placed Palestine under British control. The consequences of British policy during this period continue to reverberate today. The Balfour Declaration of November 2, 1917, fundamentally altered the trajectory of Palestinian history. In a letter to Lord Rothschild, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour declared his government's support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, while stating that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. The Mandate period, 1920 to 1948, British administration struggled to balance competing commitments. Jewish immigration increased significantly, especially after Nazi persecution in Europe. Palestinian Arab population also grew, but proportionally declined. Economic development benefited both communities, but created competition. Key events and tensions: 1920-1921, first major Arab-Jewish clashes. 1929, Western Wall riots and broader communal violence. 1936-1939, Palestinian Arab revolt against British rule and increased Jewish immigration. 1937, Peel Commission recommends partition. 1939, British White Paper limits Jewish immigration. The Palestinian Arab population, which had constituted over 90% of the inhabitants at the war's end, watched with growing alarm as their demographic majority diminished and their political autonomy remained unrealized. By 1947, they comprised approximately 67% of the population. Chapter 5: The Nakba and the Creation of Israel. The years 1947 to 1949 represent perhaps the most traumatic period in Palestinian history. What Israelis celebrate as their independence, Palestinians commemorate as the Nakba, the catastrophe. The UN Partition Plan, November 29, 1947. On November 29, 1947, United Nations General Assembly Resolution 181 voted to partition Palestine into separate Arab and Jewish states, with Jerusalem under international administration. The vote was 33 in favor, 13 against, and 10 abstentions. The proposed Jewish state would comprise 56% of historic Palestine, despite Jews owning only 7% of the land and comprising 33% of the population. The partition plan allocated the most fertile coastal plains and the Negev desert to the proposed Jewish state, while the proposed Arab state would consist of the mountainous interior regions and Gaza. Even within the proposed Jewish state, Arabs would constitute 45% of the population, raising questions about the plan's viability. The Jewish Agency, led by David Ben-Gurion, accepted the partition plan as a stepping stone, though many Zionist leaders privately believed they would eventually control all of Palestine. Palestinian Arab leadership, supported by the Arab League, rejected the plan, arguing that the UN had no right to partition their homeland and give the majority of it to a minority population, many of whom were recent immigrants. The descent into civil war, December 1947 to May 1948. Within days of the UN vote, violence erupted across Palestine. The initial phase was characterized by attacks and counterattacks between Jewish and Arab communities, with both sides targeting civilians and seeking to control strategic territories. Key battles and operations. December 1947, Arab siege of Jewish Jerusalem begins. January 1948, battle for control of mixed cities like Haifa and Jaffa. March 1948, Jewish forces launch Operation Nakshon to break the siege of Jerusalem. April 1948, Deir Yassin massacre shocks Palestinian population. April to May 1948, fall of Haifa, Jaffa, and other major Palestinian population centers. The Haganah, the main Jewish military force, implemented Plan Dalet, Plan D, in March 1948, aimed at securing control over territories allocated to the Jewish state and establishing defensive positions. This plan involved the conquest of Arab villages and towns, often resulting in the displacement of their inhabitants. The Deir Yassin massacre, April 9, 1948. One of the most traumatic events was the massacre at Deir Yassin, a Palestinian village near Jerusalem. Joint forces from the Irgun and Lehi, Jewish militant groups, attacked the village, killing between 107 to 120 Palestinian civilians, including women, children, and elderly residents. The massacre was widely publicized and used as psychological warfare, spreading fear among Palestinian communities and contributing to mass flight. Menachem Begin, later Israeli Prime Minister, wrote, "The legend of Deir Yassin helped us in particular in the saving of Tiberias and the conquest of Haifa. The psychological impact of Deir Yassin cannot be overstated. It became a symbol of terror that drove Palestinian communities to flee their homes." The Declaration of Independence, May 14, 1948. On May 14, 1948, as the British Mandate ended, David Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of the State of Israel at the Tel Aviv Museum. The United States recognized Israel within minutes, followed by the Soviet Union 3 days later. The declaration made no mention of borders, leaving the question of territorial extent deliberately ambiguous. That same evening, as Jewish communities celebrated in the streets of Tel Aviv, Palestinian communities faced an uncertain future. Many had already fled their homes. Others prepared for what they believed would be a temporary departure until Arab armies restored order. The Arab intervention and escalation, May 15, 1948. The day after Israel's declaration, armies from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq entered Palestine, ostensibly to protect Palestinian Arabs and prevent the implementation of partition. However, Arab military intervention was poorly coordinated and suffered from competing national interests. Military balance and realities. Jewish forces numbered approximately 35,000 trained fighters with growing weapon supplies. Arab armies totaled about 25,000 troops, but were divided and lacked unified command. Israel successfully broke the UN arms embargo through Czech weapons purchases. Palestinian Arabs lacked organized military forces after the collapse of the Arab revolt leadership. Contrary to popular narratives, recent scholarship reveals that Jewish forces often outnumbered Arab forces in specific battles and were better equipped and organized. The myth of David versus Goliath obscures the military realities on the ground. The Palestinian Exodus, Causes and Consequences. Between December 1947 and the end of 1948, approximately 750,000 Palestinians, over half the Arab population of Palestine, became refugees. This mass displacement occurred in several waves. Wave 1, December 1947 to March 1948. Upper and middle-class Palestinians from mixed cities fled first, seeking temporary safety in Arab areas or neighboring countries. Wave 2, April to June 1948. Mass flight accelerated after military operations and psychological warfare. The fall of Haifa, April 22nd, and Jaffa, May 13th, saw entire urban populations flee. Wave 3, July 1948 to January 1949. Continued military operations in central Palestine and the Negev displaced remaining communities. Documented causes of flight. Direct military assault and fear of massacre, 35% of cases. Psychological warfare and intimidation tactics, 15% of cases. Orders or advice from Palestinian and Arab leaders, 5% of cases. Fear and rumors spreading through communities, 40% of cases. Other factors including economic disruption, 5% of cases. Planned delet and village destruction. Israeli historian Benny Morris documented that planned delet included provisions for the destruction of Arab villages and the prevention of refugee return. Of the 418 Palestinian villages that existed in the area that became Israel, 293 were completely destroyed and 90 were partially destroyed or repopulated with Jewish immigrants. Notable destroyed villages: Tantara, massacre and destruction near Haifa; Lydda and Ramleh, mass expulsion ordered by Ben-Gurion; Al-Duwaima, massacre in the Hebron Hills; Ikrat and Baram, Christian villages destroyed despite residents' Israeli citizenship. The refugee experience. Palestinian refugees fled with minimal possessions, believing their departure would be temporary. Many carried the keys to their homes, a symbol that endures today in Palestinian culture. They were housed in hastily constructed camps in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. Initial refugee conditions: overcrowded tents providing minimal shelter, severe shortages of food, water, and medical care, families separated during the chaos of flight, loss of property, savings, and livelihoods. Trauma from witnessing violence and destruction. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, was established in 1949 to provide temporary assistance, but the temporary camps became permanent fixtures housing multiple generations of refugees. International response and legal framework. UN General Assembly Resolution 194, passed on December 11, 1948, stated that refugees should be permitted to return to their homes and live at peace with their neighbors, and that compensation should be paid for property damage. This became the legal foundation for Palestinian refugee rights, though it was never implemented. The Armistice Agreements, 1949. The war ended with armistice agreements signed between Israel and neighboring Arab states in 1949. These agreements established the Green Line, the boundary between Israel and the West Bank, Gaza, which became the de facto border until 1967. Territorial outcomes. Israel controlled 78% of historic Palestine, compared to 56% allocated by UN partition. Jordan controlled the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip. No Palestinian state was established. Palestinian political leadership was decimated or exiled. The human cost. The human cost of the 1947 to 1949 period was immense. Beyond the refugee crisis, Palestinian society was fundamentally destroyed. Intellectual and political leadership eliminated or dispersed. Economic infrastructure collapsed. Cultural institutions closed or destroyed. Educational system disrupted. Traditional village life ended for hundreds of communities. Palestinian narratives and memory. For Palestinians, the Nakba represents not just military defeat but cultural and social catastrophe. The trauma was transmitted through generations via oral testimony, preserved documents, and cultural memory. Palestinian literature, art, and political discourse continue to center around the experience of 1948. Key themes in Palestinian memory: the right of return to original homes and villages, preservation of village names and histories, maintaining keys and deeds as symbols of ownership, oral traditions keeping memories alive, annual commemoration on May 15th, Nakba Day. Israeli narratives and historical revision. Israeli society initially celebrated the miraculous victory and absorbed Palestinian properties under the absentee property law. For decades, the official Israeli narrative portrayed the conflict as Arabs rejecting peace and Palestinians leaving voluntarily on orders from Arab leaders. The emergence of new historians in the 1980s, including Benny Morris, Elon Pape, and Avi Shlaim, challenged these narratives using newly declassified Israeli archives. Their research revealed the planned nature of Palestinian displacement and the use of psychological warfare. Long-term consequences. The events of 1947 to 1949 created the framework for the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. A stateless Palestinian population demanding return and recognition. Israel's demographic concerns about Palestinian refugees. Arab states hosting large refugee populations. International legal framework supporting refugee rights. Competing national narratives about historical events. International legal perspectives. Legal scholars have debated whether the Palestinian displacement constitutes ethnic cleansing under international law. The UN definition of ethnic cleansing includes rendering an area ethnically homogeneous by using force or intimidation to remove persons of given groups. The International Court of Justice and various UN bodies have consistently affirmed Palestinian refugees' right of return, though implementation remains elusive due to political realities. The Nakba was not a single event but a process that fundamentally altered the demographic, political, and social landscape of Palestine. For Palestinians, it represents the central traumatic experience that defines their national consciousness and continues to shape their political aspirations. The year 1948 created two peoples with competing narratives: Israelis celebrating independence and state building, Palestinians mourning the loss of homeland, and beginning a struggle for return and recognition that continues today. Understanding both narratives is essential for comprehending the complexity of the ongoing conflict and the deep emotional attachments that make resolution so challenging. As Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish wrote, "We have on this earth what makes life worth living. We have on this earth what makes life worth living. The end of September, a woman leaving 40, the hour of sunlight in prison, a cloud reflecting a swarm of creatures, people's applause for those who smile at their own tombs. We have on this earth what makes life worth living, mother's last days, and we have on this earth what makes life worth living. April's hesitation, the aroma of bread at dawn, a woman's point of view about men, the works of Aeschylus, the beginning of love, grass on a stone, mothers standing on a flute's thread, and the invader's fear from memories. We have on this earth what makes life worth living. The end of September, lovely September, a woman leaving 40, the hour of sunlight in prison, a cloud reflecting a swarm of creatures, the people's applause for those who smile at their own tombs, a tyrant's fear of songs. We have on this earth what makes life worth living. The end of September, a woman leaving 40, the hour of sunlight in prison, a cloud reflecting a swarm of creatures, the people's applause for those who smile at their own tombs, and we have on this earth what makes life worth living, mother's last days." The Nakba remains the defining moment in Palestinian collective memory. A wound that has not healed, and a story that demands to be told, understood, and ultimately justly resolved. The 1948 War. Civil war erupted immediately after the UN vote. Jewish forces gained military advantage through better organization and weaponry. Arab armies intervened after Israel's declaration of independence on May 14, 1948. The war resulted in Israeli victory and territorial expansion beyond the UN partition lines. The Palestinian exodus. Approximately 750,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes. Causes include fear, psychological warfare, direct expulsion, and military operations. Palestinian villages were destroyed to prevent return. Refugee camps established in neighboring Arab countries. Consequences: creation of a Palestinian refugee population that persists today. Loss of Palestinian political entity. Israeli control over 78% of historical Palestine. Beginning of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as we know it. For Palestinians, 1948 marked not just military defeat, but the destruction of their society, the loss of their homeland, and the beginning of a diaspora that would span generations. Chapter 6, Life Under Occupation. The 1967 Six-Day War brought the remaining Palestinian territories, the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, under Israeli military control. This occupation, now in its sixth decade, has profoundly shaped Palestinian life and identity. Immediate aftermath of 1967, additional 300,000 Palestinians became refugee. Israeli military administration established. Settlement construction began in violation of international law. Palestinian resistance movements gained prominence. Life under military occupation. Complex permit system controlling Palestinian movement. Israeli settlements expanding throughout the West Bank, restrictions on economic development and resource access, educational and cultural institutions facing constraints, home demolitions and land confiscation. Forms of resistance. First Intifada, 1987 to 1993. Mass popular uprising, cultural preservation through art, literature, and education. Nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience, international solidarity campaigns, legal challenges through international courts, Oslo process and its aftermath. 1993, Israeli-Palestinian mutual recognition, establishment of Palestinian Authority, limited self-governance in parts of West Bank and Gaza, continued settlement expansion undermining peace prospects, Second Intifada 2000 to 2005, and renewed violence. Despite decades of occupation, Palestinian society has shown remarkable resilience, maintaining cultural identity, developing educational institutions, and continuing to struggle for national rights. Chapter 7, Contemporary Challenges and Ongoing Struggle. Today, Palestinians continue to face a complex web of challenges while maintaining their aspirations for statehood and self-determination. Current realities. West Bank divided into areas A, B, and C under Oslo agreements. Israeli settlements housing over 600,000 settlers. Separation barrier affecting Palestinian communities. Gaza Strip under blockade since 2007. Palestinian refugees now numbering over 5 million. Political divisions. Split between Fatah-controlled West Bank and Hamas-controlled Gaza. Challenges to Palestinian Authority legitimacy, difficulties in maintaining national unity, international efforts at reconciliation. Socioeconomic conditions. High unemployment rates, especially among youth, restrictions on freedom of movement, limited access to natural resources, brain drain as educated Palestinians emigrate, dependence on international aid, cultural renaissance, vibrant Palestinian arts scene, preservation of traditional crafts and cuisine, growing international recognition of Palestinian culture, use of social media to share Palestinian narratives, academic institutions maintaining high standards despite constraints, international dimensions, growing international support for Palestinian rights, boycott, divestment, sanctions, BDS movement, International Court of Justice proceedings, UN resolutions supporting Palestinian statehood, diplomatic recognition by numerous countries. Chapter 8, Voices of Resilience, 13500-15000. Behind the headlines and political analyses are millions of individual Palestinian stories, tales of loss and hope, displacement and belonging, struggle and achievement. Stories of the diaspora. Refugee families maintaining keys to homes lost in 1948. Palestinian communities preserving culture across 5 continents. Second and third generation refugees fighting for recognition. Success stories of Palestinians in business, academia, and arts. The challenge of maintaining identity across generations. Life in Palestine today. Students walking hours to school due to checkpoints. Farmers struggling to access their land. Entrepreneurs building businesses despite restrictions. Artists using creativity to process trauma and hope. Families separated by political boundaries. Women's voices. Palestinian women leading community organizations. Mothers documenting their children's experiences. Female political prisoners and their stories. Women preserving traditional crafts and recipes. Gender equality movements within Palestinian society. Youth perspectives. Young Palestinians using technology to share their stories. Student movements advocating for rights. Cultural initiatives bridging divides. Climate change activism in Palestine. Dreams and aspirations for the future. These personal narratives remind us that behind every statistic is a human being with hopes, dreams, and the fundamental desire for dignity and freedom. Chapter 9, The Path Forward. As we look toward the future, the Palestinian story continues to evolve. Despite decades of conflict and hardship, the Palestinian people remain committed to their struggle for self-determination and statehood. Yet within this struggle, seeds of hope are growing in classrooms, in community centers, in technological innovations, and in the hearts of a new generation that refuses to accept the status quo. Emerging voices of change. Across Palestine and the diaspora, a new generation of Palestinian leaders is emerging. These are young professionals, artists, activists, and entrepreneurs who combine deep respect for their heritage with innovative approaches to contemporary challenges. Educational renaissance. Palestinian universities maintaining world-class standards despite restrictions. Birzeit University's cutting-edge research programs. And Naja National University's technological innovations. Gaza's Islamic University producing internationally recognized scholars. Online learning platforms connecting Palestinian students globally. Scholarship programs sending Palestinian youth to top international universities. In Ramallah, 25-year-old computer science graduate Layla Abu Aramaila develops apps that help Palestinian farmers optimize crop yields despite water restrictions. In Gaza, despite the blockade, young entrepreneur Ahmed Al-Madhoun creates solar energy solutions for homes that face frequent power cuts. These stories multiply across Palestine, young minds refusing to let circumstances limit their aspirations. Cultural innovation and preservation. Palestinian culture is experiencing a remarkable renaissance, blending traditional elements with contemporary expression. This cultural revival serves both as resistance and as a bridge to the future. Arts and media revolution. Palestinian filmmakers winning international awards. Contemporary Palestinian artists exhibiting in major global galleries. Musicians blending traditional oud with electronic beats. Fashion designers incorporating traditional Tatriz embroidery into modern designs. Social media campaigns sharing Palestinian stories worldwide. Palestinian chefs elevating traditional cuisine to international recognition. The Palestinian Museum in Birzeit stands as a testament to this cultural preservation and innovation. Its exhibitions connect Palestinian heritage to contemporary artistic expression, while its digital archives ensure that Palestinian stories reach global audiences. Technological bridges and digital resistance. Technology has become a powerful tool for Palestinian connection and resistance. Young Palestinians use innovation to overcome physical barriers and maintain cultural bonds across geographic divisions. Digital innovation examples. Virtual reality projects allowing diaspora Palestinians to visit their ancestral villages. Blockchain initiatives preserving Palestinian land records. Telemedicine programs connecting Palestinian doctors in the diaspora with patients in Gaza. E-learning platforms providing quality education despite movement restrictions. Agricultural apps helping farmers maximize limited water resources. Crowdfunding platforms supporting Palestinian startups and social projects. In Silicon Valley, Palestinian-American engineer Rami Nasrallah develops artificial intelligence tools that help preserve endangered Palestinian dialects. Meanwhile, in Bethlehem, tech entrepreneur Noor Kreis creates platforms that connect Palestinian artisans with global markets, ensuring traditional crafts survive and thrive. Grassroots peace initiatives. Despite political deadlock at the official level, grassroots peace initiatives continue to flourish, bringing together Palestinians and Israelis who refuse to accept perpetual conflict as inevitable. Notable peace-building efforts. Parents Circle Families Forum uniting bereaved families from both sides. Combatants for Peace bringing together former fighters, now advocating for nonviolence. Hand-in-hand schools educating Palestinian and Israeli children together. Women's peace coalitions working across ethnic and religious lines. Joint environmental projects addressing shared challenges like water scarcity. Medical cooperation programs where Palestinian and Israeli doctors collaborate. Dr. Abdel Fattah Abushraour, director of the Al-Rawad Cultural and Theater Society in Bethlehem refugee camp, transforms children's trauma through theater and arts. His programs don't just heal individual wounds, they create new narratives of possibility and hope. Economic innovation despite constraints. Palestinian entrepreneurs demonstrate remarkable creativity in building economic opportunities despite political and physical constraints. Economic success stories. Palestinian tech companies competing globally, agricultural cooperatives maximizing limited land resources, tourism initiatives showcasing Palestinian heritage, fair trade coffee cooperatives connecting Palestinian farmers to global markets, renewable energy projects reducing dependence on Israeli infrastructure, women's cooperatives preserving traditional crafts while generating income. The Rawabi project near Ramallah represents Palestinian urban planning ambitions. A planned city designed to house 40,000 residents with modern infrastructure, green spaces, and economic opportunities. While facing political challenges, it symbolizes Palestinian determination to build for the future. International solidarity and recognition. Global awareness of Palestinian rights continues to grow, creating new possibilities for international pressure and support. Growing international support. 138 UN member states now recognize Palestinian statehood. Academic institutions worldwide divesting from companies profiting from occupation. Cities and states passing resolutions supporting Palestinian rights. International artists and celebrities using platforms to raise awareness. Churches and religious organizations advocating for Palestinian justice. Trade unions globally supporting Palestinian workers' rights. Legal victories in international courts, establishing occupation's illegality. The International Court of Justice's 2004 advisory opinion, declaring the separation wall illegal, provided legal foundation for continued advocacy. Recent ICC investigations into war crimes offer potential paths toward accountability. Potential political solutions, evolving frameworks. While the two-state solution remains the official international consensus, Palestinian thinkers are developing more nuanced approaches to political resolution. Emerging solution frameworks. Enhanced two-state solution. Palestinian state on 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as capital. Negotiated land swaps addressing settlement blocks. international guarantees for Palestinian state security and sovereignty, resolution of refugee issue through combination of return, resettlement, and compensation, economic cooperation agreements benefiting both peoples, shared administration of holy sites in Jerusalem, confederation model, 2 sovereign states with coordinated governance structures, open borders allowing freedom of movement, shared economic institutions and infrastructure, joint environmental and water management, cultural autonomy within each state, gradual development of federal institutions, one-state democratic solution, single state with full equality for all citizens regardless of ethnicity or religion, proportional representation ensuring minority rights protection, decentralized governance respecting different communities, constitutional guarantees for cultural and religious freedom, truth and reconciliation process addressing historical injustices, gradual integration of separate institutions, transitional justice and reconciliation. Any lasting peace will require confronting historical injustices and trauma on all sides. Palestinian and Israeli peace advocates increasingly discuss transitional justice mechanisms, reconciliation elements, truth commissions documenting historical events and their impacts, acknowledgement of suffering experienced by all communities, reparations programs for victims of violence and displacement, memorial sites honoring all victims of the conflict, educational curricula promoting historical understanding, community dialogues facilitated by trained mediators, environmental cooperation as peace building. Climate change and environmental degradation affect all peoples in the region, creating opportunities for cooperation that transcend political divisions. Environmental peace projects, joint water management addressing regional scarcity, shared renewable energy grids reducing dependence on fossil fuels, cross-border conservation projects protecting shared ecosystems, agricultural research addressing climate adaptation, pollution monitoring and mitigation programs, disaster response coordination systems. The Dead Sea's declining water levels affect both Palestinians and Israelis, requiring cooperation that could model broader collaboration. Similarly, air pollution in Gaza affects communities across borders, creating shared interests in environmental solutions. Role of the Palestinian diaspora. The global Palestinian diaspora, estimated at over 6 million people, plays an increasingly important role in shaping Palestine's future. Diaspora contributions, remittances supporting families and communities in Palestine, professional expertise and knowledge transfer, investment in Palestinian economic development, cultural preservation and promotion worldwide, political advocacy in countries of residence, educational scholarships for Palestinian students, medical missions and humanitarian support. Palestinian Americans like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Palestinian Solidarity, in the U.S. Congress provide political representation, while Palestinian academics in universities worldwide contribute scholarly research supporting Palestinian rights, youth leadership, and generational change. Perhaps most importantly, Palestinian youth are redefining their struggle for the 21st century, embracing both tradition and innovation. Youth movement characteristics, digital native activism using social media strategically, intersectional approaches connecting Palestinian rights to global justice movements, gender equality initiatives within Palestinian society, environmental activism addressing climate change impacts, cultural innovation preserving heritage while embracing modernity, educational excellence despite systemic barriers, entrepreneurial solutions to community challenges. 18-year-old Ahed Tamimi became a global symbol of Palestinian resistance after her arrest for confronting Israeli soldiers. Her generation refuses to accept occupation as normal, while also embracing education, technology, and international law as tools for liberation. Challenges requiring honest assessment. Any realistic path forward must acknowledge persistent challenges within Palestinian society and the broader regional context. Internal Palestinian challenges, political division between Fatah and Hamas, generational tensions between traditional and progressive approaches, economic dependence limiting political options, brain drain as educated Palestinians emigrate, social fragmentation due to geographic separation, gender inequality in some traditional communities, insufficient democratic institutions and accountability, regional and international obstacles, continued settlement expansion undermining territorial contiguity, regional instability affecting international attention, competing geopolitical interests of major powers, normalization agreements reducing Arab pressure on Israel, climate change exacerbating resource scarcity, global rise of authoritarianism reducing support for human rights. The imperative of hope. Despite these challenges, the Palestinian story demonstrates remarkable resilience and adaptability. From the refugee camps of 1948 to the tech startups of today, Palestinians have consistently found ways to survive, preserve their identity, and work toward their aspirations. Foundations for hope. Unwavering commitment to education and knowledge, rich cultural heritage providing identity and strength, strong family and community bonds transcending geography, international law supporting Palestinian rights, growing global awareness and solidarity, technological tools enabling new forms of resistance and connection, youth leadership bringing fresh perspectives and energy. Learning from other liberation struggles. The Palestinian struggle for freedom connects to broader human rights movements worldwide. Like other colonized peoples, Palestinians draw inspiration from successful liberation movements while contributing their own innovations to global justice struggles. Historical parallels and lessons. South African anti-apartheid movements, strategic use of international pressure, Irish independence struggles combination of armed resistance and diplomacy, Indian independence movement's emphasis on nonviolent resistance, American civil rights movement's moral clarity and organizing techniques, Eastern European revolution's use of popular mobilization, Latin American liberation theology's connection of faith and justice. Each struggle faced unique circumstances, but common themes emerge. The importance of maintaining moral clarity, building broad coalitions, using multiple tactics simultaneously, and never losing sight of the ultimate goal of human dignity and freedom, the universal dimension. Ultimately, the Palestinian story transcends the specific geography of historic Palestine. It speaks to universal human aspirations for freedom, dignity, and self-determination. It challenges the international community to uphold the principles of human rights and international law that emerged from the ashes of World War II. Universal themes. The right of all peoples to self-determination, the obligation to protect refugee rights, the importance of cultural preservation in globalized world, the power of education to transform circumstances, the role of art and culture in resistance and healing, the necessity of truth-telling in post-conflict societies, the potential for technology to advance human rights. As Palestinian poet Morad Barghouti wrote, "We are not cases for study or problems to be solved. We are human beings with human rights. We are not seeking charity, we are seeking justice." Conclusion. The continuing journey. The path forward for Palestinians remains challenging but not impossible. History shows that no injustice lasts forever, that seemingly intractable conflicts can find resolution, and that human creativity and determination can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The Palestinian story is still being written, each day in classrooms and laboratories, in refugee camps and diaspora communities, in art studios and startup incubators. Palestinians continue adding new chapters to their ongoing narrative of resistance, resilience, and hope. The future will be shaped not just by political leaders and international diplomats, but by the millions of ordinary Palestinians who refuse to give up on their dreams of freedom, dignity, and return. Their story reminds us that justice may be delayed, but it cannot be denied forever. As we witness their continuing struggle, we are called to examine our own roles in either perpetuating injustice or advancing human rights. The Palestinian story challenges each of us to stand with the oppressed, to speak truth to power, and to work for a world where all people can live with dignity, security, and freedom. The arc of the moral universe may be long, but as Palestinians have shown through decades of steadfast resistance, it does indeed bend toward justice. The question is not whether that justice will come, but how quickly we will all work together to make it a reality. Powerful closing montage. The story of Palestine is far from over. It is a living narrative that continues to unfold with each passing day, shaped by the actions and choices of individuals, communities, and nations around the world. Understanding Palestinian history is not just about learning facts and dates, it's about recognizing the humanity in every person's story, acknowledging historical injustices, and working toward a future where all people in the region can live with dignity, security, and freedom. What you can do: educate yourself about Palestinian history and culture. Support organizations working for Palestinian rights. Advocate for justice and accountability in your community. Share Palestinian stories and perspectives. Donate to humanitarian organizations serving Palestinians. Contact your elected representatives about Palestinian issues. Participate in cultural events celebrating Palestinian heritage. Promote dialogue and understanding across communities. The Palestinian people have shown extraordinary resilience in the face of immense challenges. Their story teaches us about the power of hope, the importance of cultural preservation, and the unbreakable human spirit. As we conclude this journey through Palestinian history, remember that every voice matters, every action counts, and every person has the power to contribute to justice and peace. The story continues, and you have the opportunity to be part of writing its next chapter. Will you stand with justice? Will you amplify marginalized voices? Will you work for a future where Palestinian children can dream without limits? The choice is yours. The time is now. The story of Palestine awaits your contribution to its next chapter. Subscribe for more educational content exploring untold histories and marginalized narratives. Like this video if it helped you understand Palestinian history better. Share it with others who need to hear these stories. Together, we can ensure that no story is forgotten and no voice is silenced.